Hi, this is Kent, and this is Blues Piano Lick number 12. We're going to start out looking at this in the key of C as we usually do. There's my C7 chord, the one chord. The lick itself starts with a pair of notes, and they move up. You've heard that kind of sound a million times, right? And when I play it that way, it kind of sounds like a really classic, almost a very old-fashioned kind of a thing. So this is definitely a cliche riff, but in the blues is full of cliches because that makes it a recognizable sound. Something becomes a cliche not just because it's tired and boring.
Not
Sometimes
again.
it is a cliche because it's really important. And so this is the latter case, right? Let's use a walking bass line here for a minute. So you see how I kind of like threw that thing in there as a second part of the sentence, or you know what I mean? It was just a thrown in thing that tied things together, even though it's very common, this sound. When you're talking about a traditional style like the blues, you're always walking that fine line between the cliche and the paying homage to the genre. And when people recognize certain common sounds like this, they realize, hey, I'm hearing the blues, man. All right, so let's talk about fingering here on this. I was kind of varying it. If you have a pedal, then you could use like the same two fingers, like thumb, maybe fourth finger, and just use the same pair of fingers all the time. But if you want to do like a more official kind of formal fingering, so that this it could be done without pedal and still go, then you could do something like this if your hand can stretch wide enough. Starting here and going, it allows you to play these connected without pedal. So now let's do a little bit of theory here, analysis, so that you can move this into other places. Even if we're still in the key of C, blues, it would be nice if we could also do this same pattern on the F7 chord. Here's F7 in root position. So let's look at this thing. Back on C, I've got my thumb on the third of the chord. That's your starting point to get yourself oriented. All right? The upper note is the tonic of the chord, the one note, the root. The top part is going to go up a whole step, and then the rest is half steps. The bottom part is just a series of half steps. So let's transpose that over to here. Bottom part is the third of the chord. So we're on F7 now. There's the third, and as I said, the bottom part just goes up in half steps. The top part goes up like this, as we said. Whole step, and then the rest is half steps. So you got two patterns to remember, and they have to be combined. We start on the third, down here, and we go up half steps. The upper part starts on the root of the chord, goes up a whole step, and then the rest is half steps. So finally, I promised that I would talk about how to use this pattern in a turnaround. So let's say we're back to C blues here. If we do let's say we're on the G7 towards the end of the 12 bar pattern. I'm going to use this simple bass line here. So when we go up to the G, we'll have a G7. Here's root position. Here's a turnaround, standard one that we've been doing. But let's use this pattern of with these sixths here for the turnaround. We're going to use this now in a turnaround. I'm going to use this same pattern down here in the left hand. We're going to go. You'll recognize these sixths here. So notice this and the bottom note of my sixths are the same. The left hand are going together. And you can hit, let's say, one cool chord on the G down here when I'm doing this G octave. Okay, that is a G7. I've got the 7th, the 3rd, and I have a raised 5th in this chord. Because the 5th of the G would be here, raised 5th. Okay, so that could be called a G7 augmented or a G7 plus 5. Or in some contexts you might think of this as a flat 13. But anyway, I've got a raised 5th here. Sounds cool to use this one because if I go back into the first bar of the blues, I can go from here up to, okay, G7, we're towards the end of the 12 bars. F. Now that time I used our pattern, but I went down. So I hope that gives you some ideas on how you can use this as a turnaround. Here's a nice way to break this up as a final little tidbit at the end here. I'm using the pattern starting at the top, but I'm hitting so I'm sure you can imagine a lot of ways to use that as well. Perhaps in the ending.